All right, welcome in everyone. Thank you for joining us today on Wednesday workshop. Let me just make sure that my mic is set up correctly. Okay, awesome it is. Awesome, awesome. Alrighty, so feel free to get any questions into the Q&A and we will answer them in the order that they are received. Looks like we've already got one. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Awesome. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and hop right into it. Okay, question. Can the scale plan be used to update certain fields based on the values of others? For example, I have a field section with all of my milestone or status fields, and I'd like to be able to fill in my survey received date field and have my service status field automatically change to received. And that if the date field should be blank, the status should automatically be changed to need. So unfortunately, we are not able to currently link fields together. When we talk about that kind of stuff, we have to think of like, how would we do it? Like, how would we connect these two fields together? And it's just currently, like I'd say, it's not a feature. What I usually suggest for things like that is that we want to figure out what is going to be the critical turning point for making sure that those triggers populate correctly. Do you want to base it off of updating a status field, or is the date more crucial to you as far as for making sure you go, okay, cool, I received it by November 20th, right? So that's kind of like where we're kind of needing to make, and let me see, actually, I'm going to log into the other account that I have. Sorry about that. Well, is this the right one? No, yeah, this is the right one. So like, for example, right, for my earnest money status, right, I have it that the earnest money due date, I have a receipt date. Yes. And then I have like an additional deposit date, but I have that status that's separate. I don't have an earnest money received date. The receipt date, the money receipt date could be something different, right? Maybe that's the day that the dollar amount cleared. Right, we received it, but then that's the date that it cleared. But this is where you're kind of trying to make the decision between, if the date is something that you absolutely need, you need to know the firm date that you received it by, because you're going to be sharing that as a merge field in your email templates. Then I would say you should have your triggers built off of that date so that you make sure that you're filling out that date, that you're putting in a value into that date. It's happening today. I want to make sure my triggers populate for today or in the next couple days, right? Because it doesn't have to be for the same day. It can just be, we've received it. The next day, I'm going to send out an email as long as we have a date in there, or one day after we've received it, I'm going to send out an email stating that, right? Or if the date doesn't matter, if it's not something that's super critical to you guys, right? You're not sharing that emerge field. It's not something that you need to share or track, that kind of thing. That's where the status comes into play. And that's where you would want to use that sent, received, or not received if you needed to. So really it's a matter of not having every single date have a status field associated with it, but instead trying to figure out, okay, when is it that I'm going to need a status versus a date field? Another example I have is my appraisal details. I don't have a status necessarily for this. I've got whether it's been scheduled, the date that it's been scheduled, what are has the values been met for it? What are the conditions? Is there a description for the conditions? And then I have some stuff about reinspection, right? So I would probably, if I needed to, maybe I would add in a status field for this to say that, oh, if we need re-inspections or not, but I might actually go for a firm date instead, so that way I can say we received the appraisal report by this particular date. Just to give you another example, I think the other one that I usually look at too is going to be our inspection details. I have this in kind of a different way, where instead of me having like a status necessarily where it says inspection status, scheduled, completed, buyer asked repair, or anything like that, I instead have a field that's asking, response to so what type of inspections are we doing? When is it due, right? This is going to be my period of date of when it should be done by, the actual due date that it's due, and then buyer response to the repairs. This is going to help me if they ask for repairs, cool, but if they don't and they accept it as is, I'm just going to update that so you guys can see how this works on the scale plan. This is where we're updating it. You can see here, it even says, that was actually great. I didn't even notice that it said that. So scrolling back down, now we can see, because they accepted as is, those other questions about repairs are now gone. right? So when we talk about kind of creating those different status fields or creating those different due dates fields, it's a matter of figuring out which one is going to make sense for this part of the process. Sometimes it makes sense to have it consistent across the board. You don't ever need those dates. You're always going to follow statuses. You're going to bring those statuses in every single field section that you have, right? Or there are going to be certain cases where actually that date is super helpful for me. I do need to have a date for this, or I do want a date for this to be able to share that date to say when we were completing things by, or to even have that transparency in the timeline, right? We have this timeline option here. When a date goes in there, you know, you can scroll down and you can see, okay, loan application due date, it's due by this date. Maybe I had the loan application receive date below that. Or like I said, with that one example of a, well, actually, it would probably be with re-inspections where we have that. Okay, let me see. So was a trigger that removed those fields? Yes, it was a trigger, and that is going to be a field trigger. So if I change it again, right now it says buyer accepts as is. If I update this again and say, actually, JK, they're asking for credit, or I'm sorry, they're asking for a repairs, it's going to update that, and it should bring on now those repair inspection details. So that trigger builds out for both ways. It's built out, I believe it should be built out for all of the other options as well. If they cancel, right, that's going to trigger and send up all the stuff to say that this is a canceled contract. If they ask for credit, maybe it's asking, you know, it's an email that's saying, hey, you know, wanted to confirm with the listing agent, what was the credit for these repairs? This is, you know, or do you have that report or that addendum for me? Asking for repairs is obviously, they're asking for repairs, so we need to have more of the information for repairs, and accepts as is means they're fine with it. Let me go ahead and take a look at those triggers. So I'm just going to go to triggers over here. Whenever we're talking about triggers that are going to update fields, those are going to be called our listeners. And yes, it did take 2 triggers. So that's a great follow-up question to this. So here you can see I've got this trigger that says if the buyer's response to repairs, and I'm going to scroll down so we have that on our side here, buyer response ask for repairs is equal to accepts as is, it removes these 3 fields. But if it does meet the conditions, buyer asks for repairs, then it adds on these 3 fields. If I keep scrolling down, we might see some other ones. I don't know if I have any other fields. It looks like the other 3 listeners on here don't have conditions, so they're not really applicable, but this is where you'd be building out those fields. Now, on the scale plan, when we talk about automatic things like automatic triggers, listeners is one of them. Listeners is going to be one where it's going to be waiting to hear for that update in your fields to then add on additional fields. So listeners are specifically only working with fields or field sections. It doesn't have to just be fields. It can be field sections as well that it brings on. For example, we have some of you guys where, you know, you might find out parts of the process later on in the transaction, right? You get that initial information, you get that into open to close, and then your TCs later on figure out, oh, I have to reach out and ask if there's an HOA happening at this property. Or, you know, I noticed the location for it. Are we having a survey happening at this property? Or is there a well on site? Do we need to update those types of things? And so you can build out these listeners to say, well, yes, there is an HOA, right? You found out that there was an HOA after the fact. So when I change this to yes, it brings on my HOA fields. And depending on how you're handling your task management, you can either have it that it brings on the triggers, right? The property triggers that you guys would have on scale plan, or it can also bring on like a task list. And the task list doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? For the beginning, usually it's stuff like just to help you keep online and make sure that you're filling out the information correctly. But I want you to think of those listeners as ways that you can update and kind of change things on the property fluidly. It doesn't just have to be for bringing on fields or field sections. It can also be bringing on like, you know, dates and that kind of stuff when it comes to your fields. Cool. I think there was a second part to this follow-up. What sort of magic can be done in the field? Oh, well, we just went over it. That was some of the magic, right? Having those listeners set up correctly. That's some of that magic that you can kind of see, and it happens really quickly. Obviously, you saw how fast it was for me to update those. If I change this again, one thing that I noticed that was really great. I love this. So this is something that's really brilliant that we've added in here, and I'm really grateful that we have. Anytime you guys are making updates to your fields, you know, you update that status. It's awesome that we now have a trigger notice that says, hey, this field is related to 4 trigger conditions, has this field has 4 related trigger conditions. Trigger must be executed before the update is complete. Please be patient, allow the field time to update. I just love that we have that little notification here so that you know if you do update the status for a field, like I'm going to update right now to accept buyer accepts as is, that you know that that's going to fire off and it's going to remove things with it. I'm going to scroll back down to inspection details. Cool. Sweet. Great questions for that. I can show you what it looks like on the back end too, might as well. So we're going to go over to our hammer icon into our templates. Let me see if I have, okay, I don't. So hammer icon into templates, and then we're going to go into trigger templates. These are going to be for our property field template triggers or property templates, property trigger templates. Let me go down until I see my inspection ones. Inspection trigger template. Here we go. Let me select edit. Oh, so these are for my task templates. I wanted to find my fields. Maybe it's this one. No? See how it would be really great if I had a category and I was categorizing it based off of the property field. This is why I tell you guys to organize your templates as well, because while we're on this call and you guys are trying to while you're watching me, you can see how important it is to have things organized. Let me see. I could have sworn it was with my maybe I just built it out on that specific one. That's fine. Here, we're gonna go into the inspection trigger templates. I'm gonna open this up. You can see here, I've got these 2. One of them's if the inspection's a yes, then it adds on that seller inspection task template. And if this is inspection is equal to no, so we've updated it. We've said that no, there is no inspection. Then it removes the seller inspection tasks. And it looks like this one's specifically for seller. So let me just update that too. Let me see. This is my fields buyer and seller. Maybe it's this one. Nope. So this one's for HOA, right? If I say yes, there is an HOA, it adds on the HOA details. Looks like if the inspection repairs due date is blank and will there be inspection is equal to yes, then it adds on that repair request details. Let me see if I can find the other ones. Nope. Okay, let's build it out on this one. When it comes to your property trigger templates and it comes to organization for these ones, I usually suggest building out your the same way that you build out your task templates. You know, you have them broken down into these bite-sized pieces. It's the same thing you should do for your property trigger templates. So with your property trigger templates, you know, if it's specifically about inspections for your seller, make sure that's included in the name. And then all of the triggers that are built out on here are specific to the seller. So I can still build out that those triggers that I just talked about and we have on that property, where I'm going to say we want to add or remove a field. And we'll say add trigger. Here it's going to ask us what fields do we want to add. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. One thing that was updated to this that I believe is that I can multiple select. So I'm just selecting these 3. You can see them up there, up here at the top, and we're going to say add. And now we have them added on here. Now, how do we get them to remove, right? They come on with that field section, Hannah. How do I get them to remove? Here where it says add, we're going to click on this drop down, and this is where we can select whether we want to add the fields or remove them. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as add for now, because we're going to say that when the buyer accepts it as is. So after we've created this, we're going to go ahead and turn it on. We can see the trigger assets here. This is adding on that inspection repair fields. We'll go to add condition. We're going to go to condition type and we're going to say property field. Again, we can select it off of other options. Property field is the one that I'm going to do for this one because we want to know the buyer's response to repairs. And if they say it's equal to asks for repairs, that's when we want to add on those repair fields. And then I'm going to create another trigger. And again, I'm going to go down into those fields. I like to scroll to it because I'm multiple selecting multiple fields. Thankfully, all of these have repair in their name, so I could technically type in repair, but you guys might have it where you're bringing on fields and they're not all of the fields are going to have the same, right? So you might have to have it where you have to, scroll to go to the field section that you need to add them on. We'll say add, and now we're going to change this to, we want to remove these fields. For right now, I believe that this internally required, this is going to be for if it's like for an intake form. So don't concern yourself with these questions for right now. These are going to be the crucial ones that you're going to want to pay attention to. So here we're going to say remove. We'll go ahead and turn that on, open up our trigger options again. And here we're adding on that other condition to remove the repair information. So we'll say, again, if the property field buyer response to repairs is equal to accepts as is, then we want to remove the request for all of our repairs. With our field triggers, we're only considering fields, right? So if we wanted to do a field section, we wanted to remove the whole section, we're going to go to field section here and we can say add trigger. Now, when we say field section, I'm going to go ahead and grab our inspection details. And let me see about the repair request details as well. Okay, so I'm going to have these on here and I'm actually going to change this to remove. I'm going to open up this trigger for us. And I'm going to build out a condition to say that if will there be an inspection is no. Because sometimes that question does get answered yes, but then we get an addendum later and we find out, oh, actually they waived the inspection. And so you might not need those two field sections to populate on the property because there is no inspection. So this is going to be after the fact. This is accounting for when there are changes to the property that are things like, oh, we found out that there was that they're waiving the inspection after the fact. It's been a couple days, just found out they're doing this. Instead of you having to manually remove those fields, we'll want you to answer just this one question. Now, one thing that I say, and I've had this conversation quite a bit with clients, you guys will ask me stuff like, Hannah, within your field editor, and you go down to your inspection details, how come you don't have the question, will there be an inspection within that inspection detail section, right? The reason that I prefer them to be on a separate page, like in the intake questions here, is because I can have my intake questions come on to every single property. When we talk about the fields within the field section, right? Here, will there be an inspection? The reason that I don't want to have it in there is because if I am using a condition like, will there be an inspection? And I say no initially, that whole field section's gone. And so I don't have the ability to say, oh, actually, just kidding. They do want an inspection. I have to change this to yes. When I go to update it, that will there be an inspection is in that field section and that field section's not on there, right? Because we indicated that we don't have it. So having some of the fields separate into your intake questions, for example, having it in a separate field section like this one, where it's just your intake questions and we're just learning a little bit more. Will there be an inspection? Yes. Having it separate is going to make it easier for you to be able to build out those triggers to say, just in case, if you find out after the fact that you do have an inspection coming, you know that you just need to update this one field, and then it'll add on that inspection information and maybe the repair request details. But if they say no, there is no inspection, you can also update this to say no, and then it'll remove those fields if you don't need it. So I want you guys to think about when you're looking at your fields and you're looking at your questions, I want you to think about how is this going to make it easier for me? I know that, having the questions all in one place might make the most sense initially when you're filling out that intake form. But when we talk about being on the property itself, you might find yourself going, actually, I kind of wish that I had this field separate because then now I can say, no, we're not having an inspection and it removes stuff. But if that changes in the future, I can say yes and it adds it back on. It's the same reason I have my appraisal information separate. Is there a loan separate? Same reason I have HOA separate. Is the house built prior to 1978? Is there an alarm? Because all of these questions here can add on different field sections or remove different field sections for me. And if I need to update them at any time, no, there is no HOA. We'll go ahead and see if it does what I think it's going to do. Well, no, there isn't an HOA. We go back to our transaction details and we scroll down. So HOA details are still on here, but I want to be able to have it that if I say, no, there is no HOA, it removes that field section. And if I change it later, oh, actually, just kidding, there is an HOA, and we change this back to yes, it does actually add the HOA details back to this property. Cool. Sweet. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. We're going to just pause. I did not get my FAQs like I normally do today. Kelly is out right now, and she's usually the one that grabs me the FAQs, but I'm going to just go back and I'm going to take a look at what I have seen in the past, and we'll see if we have any other past FAQs that we can kind of review together. Okay, so changelog might be a good thing for us to take a look at. So let's go ahead and pop that open. So changelog, we're going to go over to the person icon in the top right-hand corner of your guys' open and close account. You'll go down to changelog, and then that's going to open up our changelog. We did have a couple changes happen over this past week. I believe it was Saturday. A couple things had updated. So definitely want to have you guys, review that and take a look at it. And there might be some things in here that helped you out or made things harder for you. And it just depends on what you're working on and what you're doing in the system. But these are the different things that have been updated within our system. Before that, we had it on October 26th. Let's see. Is there any topics that you guys wanted to take a look at today a little bit deeper? Like, did we want to talk about smart blocks or importing or merge fields? Smart blocks. Smart blocks are fun. I like to talk about smart blocks in a couple different ways. When we talk about smart blocks, the first thing that I usually like to do is I like to kind of look at our intro emails. That's usually what I like to start with. And the reason I like to start with the intro emails is because there are going to be cases where you're going to have emails that, especially for the intro email, that you might be sharing that information, you might not be sharing that information. And so intro emails are usually the easiest one to get started with. Instead of having like 10 different intro emails that you might send out, depending on whether it's a finance deal or a cash deal, they have an earnest money, they have additional earnest money deposit, there's an inspection happening, there's an HOA on the property, there's an appraisal that's going to be happening, or they've waived all of that, right? This is kind of where smart blocks can come into play, and they can make things a lot easier for you guys to make sure that you're sharing the information that you know you'll absolutely have to share with them. So looking at my seller intro email, and most of you guys who have signed up for open to close after, I believe it was last year in December, I believe, should have the seller. You might have our seller intro emails here. You'll probably still have our smart blocks. A lot of people will delete the emails, but they haven't deleted the smart blocks yet. So some of these might look familiar to you guys, and you might be like, oh, that's what that is. But taking a look at this email, we've got some classic merge fields. This is just bringing in data from that actual count, right? This is going to be a merge field from a contact role. Contact roles have a ton of different types of merge fields. Just to take a look at that really quickly, if I click on appraisal, we've got all the personal details. I want you to think of that as the main contact information. And then we've got all the business information as well, in case you're applying businesses to those different contacts. And you need to make sure that that information is the same across the board. But contacts have a ton of merge fields with them. Down below that, again, we get into some information here. And within this information, we have a smart block right here, the smart block that says home inspection date V2. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the smart blocks. I'm highlighting within the curly brackets, and I'm going to click on SB. Once I click on SB, now we're going to see that smart block. So here we can see this is the smart block that it's sharing, and it says the condition with it is, will there be an inspection equal to yes? So as long as we say that there is an inspection, we're going to be asking for that home inspection due date, or we're going to be sharing that home inspection due date. For this particular smart block, I might want to add on additional conditions. I might want to say that, will there be an inspection? Yes. And, right, I'll have an and condition that says the home inspection period date must not be blank. Right? So it has to have a value in it, because maybe you guys find out your home inspection, or you're scheduling that home inspection further down the line. You're not scheduling it right away when you guys go, get that contract. sometimes you need to, call and make a couple calls to different people and get information for them to figure out, okay, when are we doing the home inspection, right? So we might want to add on an additional condition to this, but this would be like the start of your smart blocks. Inspections do not happen on every single property. And so having something like this to say, yes, there is an inspection, insert this information to share it, or no, there isn't an inspection, we don't need to share that information. That's going to be super helpful for making things faster for you as far as for automation. Anytime you find yourself editing an email, I want you to pause, take whatever it is that you wrote and go, can I make this a smart block? Because you might be able to. Another example of a smart block is going to be our HOA smart block right here. I'm going to click on smart block again. So I've just highlighted between the curly brackets. And then here I clicked on SB, and that's going to pop up in our smart block for us. So the way that this one works is that if that HOA demand exists in the property, then we're saying, hey, HOA documents for the property address was sent to us either by title, or we'll need to reach out to HOA directly, or will be sent to us by title. Once we've received those documents, we'll send them to the buyer for review. The buyer has until this date to object to any of the HOA details. So we'll keep you updated as we hear from them. So once again, I feel like we might want to update this little condition here. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have the HOA demand, right? Because if we say that we have it, if it exists in the property, then we don't need to ask for those documents, right? So maybe we update this, and instead of having it say that it exists, we should say that it's missing, because this says will be sent to us either by them or we'll reach out to get that document. So this should probably say HOA demand is missing. I'm going to go ahead and update it right now because I can click on the smart block itself. It's going to pop up in that smart block for me. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. We've got that condition. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And I'm going to update that condition to say that if the file role, HOA demand, is missing in the property. Another condition that I can do is that is there, sorry, we're going to do field, property field. Is there an HOA? Equal to yes. So now we have two conditions with this, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight it again. We'll click on smart block. It's going to pop open that screen for us. So now we have these two conditions here that yes, there is an HOA and the demand is missing. That means that we'll either be, title is either going to send us the documents or we're going to reach out to the HOA directly. Once we have them, then we're going to send it to the buyer for review because we don't have it just yet. That's kind of just letting them know where we're at as far as for the HOA part of this transaction. So it's kind of about figuring out, okay, well, HOA is not applicable for all properties, so I'm only going to want this to show up when I say, yes, there is an HOA on this property. Or HOA is not applicable for all properties. I want it to be that, yes, there is an HOA, but I also want to make sure, if it's specifically, if we're referencing something specific in it, like we're referencing that we're waiting for documents, I want to make sure that I have that also, that paired condition with it that says if it's missing in the property. That way, and the reason I like this so much is because that way, if you do have instances where you do get that HOA demand right away, or that those HOA docs right away, when your agent submit the intake form, if they do have the HOA docs, because part of your job within open and close, you're going to be a field filler, right? We're making sure those fields are updated. You're going to be a document filer. So you're going to be reviewing those documents. You're going to know whether or not you have it. If you say that it is there, then maybe we have a different smart block that comes on that says, yes, there is an HOA. We've received the document. So instead of it saying once we've received it, maybe it says we've received the documents. Sending you a copy for your records. We'll be sharing this with the buyer as soon as we can or whatever, or before the deadline or whatever language you want to use. Or we'll be sharing this with the buyer separately, right? Something like that. So that way you can have a smart block that says, if it's missing, we're going to ask for it. We're going to reach out. We're going to find out. This is what our job is to do. But if we have it, we're going to share that with our buyer to make sure that they understand what's going to happen when they purchase this home and see if they have any objections to that HOA. Which again, if they have objections to the HOA, they might not be moving into the apartment or into the home. We have this similar kind of smart blocks for our inspection responsibilities and our appraisal responsibilities as well. So again, if we highlight them, we click on SB, here's what that appraisal information looks like. I am actually going to add a condition to this like I did before, because this is how I make sure that my system is also updated so that when I'm sharing things with you guys, I know that this is right. So because this is a question about appraisal, I am going to make sure that this says when there is an appraisal equal to yes, then it brings on my appraisal responsibilities. So let's go ahead and highlight that one again. We're going to click on SB. Now we see that reflected there. Whenever you guys are looking through your smart blocks, I want you to write out. It would be helpful if you guys were to write out the different scenarios that you might need to use them. And then that way you can kind of look at your fields and you can relate it back to there and say, what are we already using that's going to help make this smart block a lot easier? The other example that I have of smart blocks is going to be contact loops. Let me see if I can get the other intro email because I have a couple of them in here. Let me just look for that other intro email that I'm thinking of. To closing parties, I think is going to be the one that I want. So I'm just going to grab the buyer side and the seller side. And I'm going to grab a couple of these guys. I'm just going to bring them up here. Okay. All right, so let's look through these really quickly. Actually, one more. I'm going to actually bring this up much higher. Enter your email to lender. I wonder if that one has it in it. So let me just click on these and see which one has the next part of this that I wanted to kind of talk about. Awesome. So this one's perfect. Okay. So this email, this is a buyer's email. It's just my intro email to my closing parties. If we click on edit and we take a look at it, you're going to see that we have a couple smart blocks in here. This one says smart block buyer's information, smart block buyer information, listing information, seller information, escrow information, and lender information. And they're all smart blocks. Why aren't they merge fields? We could have them as merge fields in here, right? You could have them as merge fields. The reason that these are smart blocks, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the buyer one instead. So here's that buyer one. I've highlighted it. We're going to click on SB. The reason that we have these as smart blocks is because we're using another tool to make sure that we're sharing all of the information and we're sharing it in a way that's easily digestible. So here we can see the buyer information. We have a contact loop. What is a contact loop? Some of you guys have asked me this question in the past. Hannah, why do we only have like one buyer? Like what happens if I have two buyers or three buyers? Do I need a buyer one, buyer two, buyer three? Not with an open to close. With an open to close, you just need that one buyer record. When you have that one buyer record, the system is going to know if you have it assigned to a couple people, all of those people are buyers. And so a contact loop, what this does is this will list out the first buyer's information. And then it'll list out the second buyer's information. And then if there's a third or fourth buyer, to list out their information as well. So contact loops makes it easier for you to share the information with those party members in a more organized way, right? Because if you have just one buyer and we were to greet that one buyer, like if I go to my buyer emails, intro to email to buyer, here, we'll go ahead and select edit on that. You see how it says like buyer first name, right? So when we have multiple buyers and the merge field is buyer first name, this is going to say, hi, hello, Hannah and Kelly. Or if there's multiple buyers, let's say there's three buyers, let's say, hello, Hannah and Hannah, comma, Kelly, and Jana, right? So it'll list out those people's names. When we want to use our contact loops, the reason that these are kind of great is that we want to make it, the information, we want that information, we want those merge fields to show up in a better view. So instead it says, this is Hannah Hoxie, this is her email, this is her phone number, this is the address that that buyer is currently located at. Next person, this is Jill, full name, this is Jana, full name, and these are their contact information. So it lists it out. To get an idea of what that looks like, we can go to a property. Let me just grab the name of this email. We're going to go to our Ivy Lane, and I'm going to go over to our contacts really quickly. We just want to make sure we have people and we want to have their information. So we've got one buyer here. We've got our listing agent. We've got another buyer here. Perfect. We've got our buyer's agent here. We've got an appraiser, another appraiser. Let's go ahead and, no, appraiser's fine. We've got a seller here, buyer's agent. So I'm going to change this because we already have one buyer's agent. I want to change this to the listing agent. And then I might change someone else to a lender. Let's change this one to a lender. Because lender was another contact role that I had on there. Okay, cool. Awesome. An escrow officer. Awesome. So now we're going to go back over to our tasks. Remember, we're testing out that email template. So I'm going to build out a trigger because I like the way it looks better when we're building out a trigger versus when we have it, when we're viewing it in the email area. So we'll go ahead and say add. We're going to go ahead and say apply template. Now that template's applied, we're going to go ahead and turn that template on, and we're going to click on inspect. And now you guys are going to see what these look like with these contact loops. So if I scroll down here, we can see it's sending to the correct people. But if I scroll down into it, ta-da, buyer agent information. Here's the buyer agent information. Here's the buyer's information. It's sharing Kelly and it's sharing me. Listing information. Here it's showing our two listing agents, right, that we have here. Looks like they don't have the rest of their merge fields that they need. See how here it says Pam Beasley with the office. So most likely the merge fields after this are going to be like business merge fields that we would want to share. Below that, we have the seller's information. And then it looks like here you can see an example of how a contact loop actually broke. So here for our escrow company, looks like we might want to fix our contact loop because we have it say start contact and then start contact again. Now to see what that structure looks like, I'm going to leave this screen open, but I'm going to also open up our smart blocks. And I'm going to go down. I believe I have them. I should have these categorized. Contact role information. Awesome, I do. So scrolling down, we'll do the, I wanted to find the buyer one. Let's go, maybe it's underneath buyer. Nope. Let's go back here and let's look for buyer. There we go. Buyer information, contact loops. I thought, I don't see that particular category there. So let's just update that to contact role information. There we go. Here's our buyer. So here you can see, like, again, buyer's information. If I want to update this, I'm going to update it right now. I'm going to reload this page and we're going to see those changes reflected immediately. Buyer information in bold, there's now a space between the two of these. I can also remove that space if I want to. Again, refresh this page and I can look at it again. This is kind of the brilliant part about being able to kind of test things out as you're going through it. You can kind of see the way it looks. Maybe I want my listing agent information to be bold as well. I'm going to go back. I'm going to head over to my categories, contact role. Let's go ahead and locate that listing information again. And again, this one, I want this to be bold as well. The moment I bold it, I'm just going to reload this email template, scroll down, and now we see how that's bolded as well. So like, this is kind of where I encourage you guys to build out your guys' email templates, play around, build out a couple smart blocks, add that trigger to the property, and then kind of play with it from here and see how that plays out. As far as, you know, updating the way that it looks, you can update it from here and you're going to see that reflect in that email template immediately. That's the other brilliant thing about email templates. And I stress this to you guys a lot. Anytime you're sending an email, if you do it more than once, create an email template. Even if you've only done it twice, it's still better to have that email template because if in the future you do need to use it, the moment you make some updates to that email template, that is going to be updated for your entire database versus, you know, think about when you update your tasks, right? Anytime we have a change to our task template, we're going to have to make sure to make that change. And then it's going to be for all future properties. With our email templates, any changes that we make to them right now, it's going to reflect for all of our properties. So I could go to a different, this is buyer intro email to closing parties. Let's see if I've got another one. I can actually probably just add it to a different property too, if I wanted to. Let's go to this one and see. I just want to double check if we have context. So this one's pretty empty. Maybe not that one. Let's go to Destiny Drive. I think that this one might be a listing. So this one's a seller. So actually, I'm going to go to my properties and I'm going to go to my all transactions and I'm going to use my segments. And I'm going to go to my buyers under contract. And this one's just filtering all the buyers for me. So these are all my contract client types that are buyer. These are all of the properties. And this is a lot easier than me just clicking around. Let me find that specific property I want to look at. Let's go to West Reading. We're going to go to contacts. Again, I just want to make sure we have a couple people on here. So Hannah, we're going to go ahead and make you the buyer because I want that buyer information to show up correctly. Cool. We're going to go back over to our tasks. I don't think I might have the task template buyer main under contract. I do have the task template on here. Here's my opening emails. If I click on those triggers right here and I scroll down, intro email to closing parties, we click on inspect. I'm going to scroll down and here we see that that information has been reflected. So you can see how you can see how when we make those slight adjustments to our smart blocks or to our merge fields, when we make an adjustment to that email template, it reflects it for our entire database. And it's brilliant in that way because it makes it so much easier for you guys to maintain the integrity of your system and the integrity of your emails is by making sure that you've got those email templates, you're using the smart blocks, and that way when you make one update once in one area, it updates it everywhere else as well. Cool. I know I just went on a rant about smart blocks. Let me see if there's any questions. One thing I love about with these Wednesday workshops is seeing your methodology as you build out stuff and test it. Oh yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's been on optimization calls with me, you probably are like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with kind of the way you go about it. Those optimization calls that we have together are really great for me because I learned so much from you guys and how you're using the system, where you're clicking, what you're doing, and it allows me to kind of adjust that so that I can share that information to you guys. I'm just showing you the way that I do it, but there's tons of ways to handle the system. I would love to eventually have uh like a Wednesday workshop where maybe we have like a client highlight, and we invite one of you guys to come on and share your system. I know that it might be a little hard to share your entire system because again, most of the information that I'm sharing with you right now, phone numbers, emails, that kind of stuff, that's all pretend stuff. So I don't have to worry about any kind of security risk or any issues with us publishing this on YouTube. But I think it'd be brilliant to be able to have one of you guys come on. Maybe we have like a baby account that we give you guys access to, and we say build out a couple things, and we'll have it as like a feature highlight together. There's also other ways that we can do it. Maybe we don't share anything about the property history, but we can definitely jump into your email templates, your task templates, and your intake forms. Kind of do some feature highlights on that too, so that we can see other ways that you guys can have your systems built out. There's so many ways that you can manage the system. I'm just showing you a couple ways, the main ways that I see people having most success with, right? That's my goal is I'm going to try to show you the examples that have been most successful for a majority of our clients. But there's a lot of other ways that you can handle it that could be successful specifically for you. But thank you. I'm glad that helps out. I know that this account specifically is very disorganized. I usually like to log into my other account when we're talking about specific organization. I try to keep this one a little bit more cued in as far as for organization. But yeah, cool. I hope that that review of smart blocks was good. Again, what I would usually suggest if you're wanting to dabble with smart blocks, feel free to submit that to our support. You're welcome to like just come over and send them a chat and say, hey, I want to build out this smart block. This is what I was thinking. This is the email template, right? This is the information that I wanted to build out as a smart block. How would I go about doing that? And our support team will help guide you through it. And if your question is too complex, they're going to send you to me. And then we'll be able to get on a call and we'll be able to talk about how are we going to handle this? Do we need a contact loop? And I'm going to go ahead and do Control S and pop open those smart blocks again. And I'm going to click on that. I'm going to open up that contact loop. So see how I've got my contact. This is so much more organized. You can see how much more organized my personal account is compared. So here underneath our contact loops, I'm just going to pop open a contact loop. We're going to click on our merge fields and we're going to go to utility. This is where that contact loop lives. This is where we're having it so that it fills out the information like this. I'm just going to leave it on this page while I talk with you guys. Usually what I like to do when I get on to optimization calls with you guys or account check-in calls where we're kind of reviewing and we're trying to see what's going on with your system. If you guys can think ahead of time of the different things that you find yourself struggling with, Hannah, I'm constantly having to switch between like 2 or 3 or 4 different email templates because I'm trying to send the same information, but it can be different depending on the different things that might happen with that transaction. That's where I'm going to encourage you guys to build out a smart block. Right? That's going to be where that smart block's really going to come into play. There could be other instances where you're like, I think I want to build out a smart block, but is this a proper use case for it? Sometimes certain things are not proper use cases for it, and instead you'd want to use a merge field. Merge fields and smart blocks are separate. Merge fields are just, I want to share this piece of information. Like I was showing you guys for that intro email to sellers, which I'm just going to open up mine again. We wanted to share that listing agent name. We don't need a smart block for this. We don't need to say, well, if the listing agent's there, then share that information. No, we know the listing agent's on there. This is our email to our seller. They should know their agent, right? I will be working with your agent, and they should know that listing agent's first name. They've been working with them. Another example of like a merge field that would probably want to be on here is maybe method of payment, right? That would probably be a good one. The closing date, if you guys have a closing date, the purchase amount, you're going to definitely know that. And then earnest money, if as long as earnest money hasn't been has it, depending on how you guys have that set up. I think earnest money is always applicable in a majority of states, if not all of them. So there's certain areas where merged fields are crucial. And then other areas, for example, again, that home inspection, where if it's applicable, if we have a home inspection and that date actually has a value in it, then we have that one. Or maybe if the date doesn't have a value in it, we say to be scheduled, right? So that's the other option that you have for this. And having those smart blocks built out. The great part about it, while this may be kind of a feat, I'll say, to build it out initially, once it's built, right? That's where that time saving comes in. You may find yourself putting in, an extra 30 minutes to make sure that you've got the right smart block set up for your intro emails. But that 30 minutes there is going to save you so much time further down the line instead of you having to custom update each and every single email template on, well, is there an inspection? Is there an HOA? Is there an appraisal? It's so much faster to let the information populate if it meets the conditions versus having to edit that email template. And that's, again, one of the main reasons why I love the way our system works is because we can kind of rely on that for our opening emails. If we want to share that information, we share it. If we don't want to share that information, we don't. Intro email to buyer. This is what I was trying to open up. Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, we are at the end of our call. We have about 15 minutes left. I don't see any other questions coming in the Q&A. Again, I don't have any FAQs for us this week. I probably will have next week. I mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again, just in case anyone is watching this recording. We are going to have a couple days where we are not doing Wednesday workshop. The days that we are not going to be doing Wednesday workshop, let me pull them up, are going to be December 25th. That's going to be a holiday. All of you guys will most likely be celebrating with your families and not working, hopefully. And then the other one is going to be that following Wednesday on January 1st. We're also not going to be having Wednesday workshop on those 2 days. So just December 25th and Wednesday the 1st, January 1st. We will not be in office, so we won't have Wednesday workshop. I will most likely post about it on Facebook as well, if I can get to that. But yeah, we will have Wednesday workshop next week. Yes, I will be in office, so we will be running Wednesday workshop next week. We're going to do a open to close giving where we're just grateful for being at open to close. I'm going to go through and I'm going to see if we can, I don't know, again, maybe I'll dress up as like a turkey for that one. That would be fun. Or something like that. I think that would be fun. Awesome, guys. Well, I'll go over my end of call spiel like I normally do. If you guys are looking for help, you need help, please reach out to us at either help@opentoclose.com. That's an email, or you can also send us a chat. Chats are great. Send us screenshots, send us looms, send us screen captures, whatever you guys have. That's going to be most helpful for our team to be able to see what's going on in your system. Is it a bug? Is it just, where we're clicking? Is it where we're looking? What's the issue with it? It's easiest if you guys can give us a video because, again, like I said, there's so many ways we can do different things in the system. If you're looking for more webinars like today's webinar, you're going to go to our webpage, you're going to go to the Learn tab, you're going to go to Webinars, and here you're going to see the webinars available. We have our Wednesday workshop, that's every single Wednesday. And then below that, we have some onboarding webinars. If you are ever stuck and you go, I think I need to do something, but I'm not sure what to do in my system, what can make it easier, watch these on-demand webinars. Like really though, even if you feel like you're the most, like, I know what I'm doing with the system, I feel good with this, I watch these webinars. I'm the one that made them. The reason that I usually suggest this is because there could have been one thing that you go, oh my gosh, yes, I said I was going to implement this and I didn't, now I'm going to do it. Contact connections, now I'm going to do it. When I'm assigning my file role, now I'm going to do it. Emails and triggers, when do I want that, task not completed email trigger to populate? Or when do I want it to populate? For your intake forms, how can I best utilize my form conditions or my internal form triggers to populate additional information for my team to fill out? These calls are going to be the backbone of your system. They're great to review, even if you're a long-term client of ours. I always suggest getting into these. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Make sure you drink water and stretch. Please, please, please make sure that you're stretching. Just bend over and touch your toes or reach up to the sky. Either one will work. You can also look up quick yoga, 5-minute yoga videos as well. Just anything to get your body moving, because I know we stay pretty sediment in our roles in front of our computers. So it's good to get yourselves moving and to do some of that. So drink your water, stretch. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Stay warm if you need to stay warm. Stay cool if you need to stay cool. I will see you guys next week. No worries. Yeah, thank you, Natalie. Again, your questions are really, really awesome. I really appreciate you coming in here and asking them. I can't wait for it, like, next week. Like, I'm excited. I always get excited. Like, what are we going to have next week? What are we going to talk about next week? But yeah, awesome, guys. Talk to you guys later. I'll see you next Wednesday.